Hello, welcome to our Wednesday's recording of our tests. Today we will be reading pages 15 to 21 of chapter 7 and answering text-dependent question number 3. So, thank you for watching this. Our question that we're focusing on today is, what important lesson about Jeremy does Stacy gain from Mr. Logan? And if you were following this pacing guide, then you should have seen that yesterday. In yesterday's reading, Stacy gets a visit from Jeremy, and Jeremy gives them some nuts for the whole family and made him a flute. So we know that's kind of awkward because as soon as he comes in, Papa asks Jeremy, like, "Oh, are you the Sims kids?" And we know that it feels a little awkward. Okay, so it looks like we're going to stop at page 21 today, so that means this will be bright green, because that's where our reading will start for tomorrow. And we know that when we look at a piece of advice given by Papa, we're going to be looking for whatever color you highlighted. Mine is this light blue one. Okay, so let's get started. We know that for the Logans it's Christmas right now, so they're enjoying a lot of family time together. And like we said, we have Jeremy that shows up. Okay, and then this is where teacher tells him, "You're not going to keep that, are you?" So let's take this away. Stacy looked malevolently at TJ, and I knew that he was thinking of the coat. "Yeah, I'm going to keep it. Why?" TJ shrugged. "Nothing, except I sure wouldn't want no whistle some old white boy been blowing on." I watched Stacy closely to see if he was going to allow himself to be goaded by TJ. He was not. "Ah, stuff it, TJ," he ordered. "Aw, man, don't get me wrong," said TJ quickly. "You want to keep the old thing? It's up to you. But for me, somebody give me something. I want it to be something fine, like that pretty little pearl-handled pistol." When the Averys left, Stacy asked Papa, "How come Jeremy gave you this flute? I mean, I didn't give him nothing." "Maybe you did give him something," said Papa, lighting his pipe. "No, sir, Papa. I ain't never give him nothing. Not even your friendship?" "Well, not really. He's a crazy kid, and he likes to walk to school with us, but—" "You like him?" Stacy frowned, thinking, "I told him I didn't want him walking with us, but he keeps on anyway. And the white kids laugh at him, 'cause he do. But he don't seem to let that bother him none. I suppose I like him all right. Is that wrong?" "No," Papa said carefully. "That ain't wrong. Actually, he's much easier to get along with than TJ. Stacy went on, "And I suppose if I let him, he could be a better friend than TJ. Papa took the pipe from his mouth, rubbed his mustache, and spoke quietly. "Far as I'm concerned, friendship between white and black don't mean that much, 'cause it usually ain't on a equal basis. Right now, you and Jeremy might get along fine, but in a few years, he'll think of himself as a man, but you'll probably still be a boy to him. And if he feels that way, he'll turn on you in a minute." "But Papa, I don't think Jeremy be that way." Papa's eyes narrowed, and his resemblance to Uncle Hammer increased. "We Logans don't have much to do with white folks. You know why? 'Cause white folks mean trouble. You see blacks hanging around the whites, they're headed for trouble. Maybe one day, whites and blacks can be real friends. But right now, the country ain't built that way. Now, you could be right about Jeremy making a much finer friend than TJ will ever be. The trouble is, down here in Mississippi, it costs too much to find out. So I think you'd better not try." So there we have his advice to Stacy about Jeremy. So let's highlight some ideas that he tells him. So this part's important because he's telling him that maybe he's going to be your friend now, but somewhere down the line, he's going to think he's better than you. Then he tells him that the Logans don't deal with white people that much. And he's kind of blaming it on the way that things are in society, right? he said. Cost too much to find out. Stacy looked full into Papa's face and read his meaning. On my way to bed, I stopped by the boys' room to retrieve an orange Christopher John had swiped from my stocking and spied Stacy fingering the flute. As I stood in the doorway, he lingered over it, then carefully rewrapping it, placed it in his box of treasured things. I never saw the flute again. The day after Christmas, Papa summoned Stacy, Christopher John, Little Man, and me into the barn. We had hoped against hope that Mama would not tell him about our trip to the Wallace store. If she did, that he would forget what he had promised. We should have known better. Mama always told Papa everything, and Papa never forgot anything. After we received our punishment, we emerged sore and teary-eyed and watched Papa, Uncle Hammer, and Mr. Morrison climb into the Packard to speed away. Mama said they were going to Vicksburg. Why Vicksburg, Mama? Asked Stacy. They got some business to attend to, she said shortly. Come on now, get busy. We've got chores to do. In the late afternoon, shortly after the men had returned, Mr. Jameson arrived. He brought with him a fruit cake sent by Mrs. Jameson and a bag of lemon drops for each of the boys and me. Mama allowed us to say our thanks and sent us outside while we played for a while in the patches of snow that remained. But when that grew tiresome, I popped into the house to see what was happening. Mama ordered me to pop back out again. What are they doing? I asked. Or asked Little Man. Looking at a whole bunch of papers, I said, and Uncle Hammer was signing something. What kind of papers? Asked Stacy. I shrugged. I don't know, but Mr. Jameson was saying something about selling the land. Selling the land? Questioned Stacy. You sure? I nodded. He said, Y'all sign them papers, Miss Caroline. Got no more legal right to this land. Can't sell it. Can't sign on to it. It'll be in y'all's name, and it'll take both of y'all to do anything with it. Both of who? I shrugged again. Papa and Uncle Hammer, I guess. After a while, it grew chilly, and we went outside. Mr. Jameson was sitting next to Big Ma and was putting some papers into his briefcase. I hope you feel better now that that's done, Miss Caroline, he said, his voice a soft mixture of Caroline aristocracy and northern schooling. Hammer and David, they've been taking care of things for a long time now, said Big Ma. Them and Mary works hard to pay the taxes and mortgage on this here place, and I've been wanting to make sure, while I'm breathing, that they gets titles to this place under the law without no trouble. I ain't wanting a whole lot of problems after I'm gone about who gets rights of the land. She paused a moment, then added, That happens sometimes, you know? Mr. Jameson nodded. He was a long, thin man in his mid-50s with a perfect lawyer face, and so placid that it was difficult to guess what thoughts lay behind it. The boys and I sat silently at the study table, and the silence allowed us to stay. I figured that Mr. Jameson would be leaving now. His business was evidently finished, and despite the fact that the family thought well of him, he was not considered a friend in the usual sense, and there seemed to be no reason for him to stay longer. But now Mr. Jameson put his briefcase back on the floor, indicating that he wasn't leaving, and looked first at Big Ma and Mama, and then across at Papa and Uncle Hammer. There's talk that some of the people around here are looking to shop at Vicksburg, he said. Big Ma looked around at Papa and Uncle Hammer, but neither of them acknowledged her glance. Their eyes were pinned on Mr. Jameson. There's talk, too, why folks are looking to shop there. He paused, met Papa's eyes, then Uncle Hammer's, and went on. As you know, my family has roots in Vicksburg. We have a number of friends there still. I got a call from one of them this morning. Said you were looking to find credit for about 30 families. Papa and Uncle Hammer neither affirmed nor denied this. You know as well as I do that credit doesn't come easy these days, continued Mr. Jameson. You expect to get any, you'll need something to back it up. I reckon we know that, said Uncle Hammer. Mr. Jameson glanced at Uncle Hammer and nodded. I reckon you did, but as far as I can see, the only thing any of you got to back that credit with is this land, and I'd hate to see you put it up. Why is that? Asked Uncle Hammer, wary of interest. Because you'd lose it. The fire popped and the room grew silent. Then Papa said, What you getting at? I'll back the credit. Again, silence. Mr. Jameson allowed Papa and Uncle Hammer several moments to search for a motive behind his mask-like face. I'm a Southerner, born and bred, but that doesn't mean I approve of all that goes on here, and there are a lot of other white people who feel the same. If you and so many others feel that way, said Uncle Hammer with a wry sneer, then how come them Wallaces ain't in jail? Hammer, Big Mom started. Because, answered Mr. Jameson candidly, there ain't enough of those same white people who would admit how they feel, or even if they did, would hang a white man for killing a black one. It's as simple as that. Uncle Hammer smiled slightly and shook his head, but his eyes showed a grudging respect for Mr. Jameson. Backing the loan will be strictly a business matter. In the fall, when the crops are in, those people who brought the goods in Vicksburg will have to pay for them. If they don't, then I'll have to. Of course, as a businessman, I'm hoping that I won't have to put out a penny. My own cash box isn't exactly overflowing, so there'll have to be a credit limit. Still, it would lend me a great deal of satisfaction to know that I was part of all this. He looked around. What do you think? So I think it's important to pause here to really figure out what Mr. Jameson's offering. So may take a quick moment to think. So what is he saying? Because it goes under this last question. So what's he offering to do? The answer is he's offering to be the back up the credit of these the families that are trying to shop somewhere other than the Wallace store, right? So why would he do that? Well, he mentions that not everyone agrees with how things are. So he says, I'm a Southerner, born and bred, but that doesn't mean I approve of everything that happens here. So he must see many injustices and know that he doesn't stand behind a lot of them. Let's keep going. You know, it ain't hardly likely, Papa said, that after accounts are figured, there'll be any money to pay any debts at all, except those up at that Wallace store. Mr. Jameson nodded knowingly, but the offer still stands. Papa inhaled it deeply. Well then, I'd say it's up to those people who'd be buying on your signature. They want to do it, then we got no say in it. We always pay cash. You know, if you sign that credit, said Uncle Hammer, you won't be the most popular man down here. You thought about that? Yes, said Mr. Jameson thoughtfully. My wife and I discussed it fully. We realized what could happen, but I'm just wondering if you would. Besides the fact that a number of white folks around here resent this land you've got and your independent attitude, there's Harlan Granger. Now, I've known Harlan all my life. He's not going to like this. I wanted to ask what Mr. Granger had to do with anything, but common sense told me that I would only earn eviction by asking. But then Mr. Jameson went on and explained without any pride for me. Okay, so he's already starting to warn them, right? So he's saying, if you do this plan, then you're going to get people who don't like you, including Mr. Granger. That's good. Ever since we were boys, Harlan's lived in the past. His grandmother filled him with all kinds of tales about the glory of the South before the war. You know, back then the Grangers had one of the biggest plantations in the state, and Spokane County practically belonged to them. And they thought it did too. They were consulted about everything concerning this area, and they felt it was up to them to see that things worked out smoothly, according to the law, a law basically for whites. Well, Harlan feels the same now as his grandmother did back then. He also feels strongly about this land, and he resents the fact that you won't sell it back to him. You back the credit with it now, and he'll seize the opportunity to take it away from you. You can count on it. So I'm going to highlight this as another piece of advice that he says. Don't put your land up, because then Harlan Granger just is waiting for an excuse to get it back. Okay, we'll continue everything else in part 2.